I'm Keith.
And I'm John.
And this is
Flumadiddle. You're a somewhat reliable source of information.
For most things, John.
For most things, Keith. Keith, I'm just so pumped up I can't handle it, Keith. We're as diehard as they come. Like, I'm all hate-breeded up and pumped up with that song, Die Hard As They Come. We know real courage, Keith. We've never wavered. We've never faltered.
That's right, man.
We're as diehard as they come.
We'll just keep plugging along, no
Keep plugging, man.
I hear you.
All right, what you got, Keith?
All right, man. Today we are going to talk about extreme preppers.
Ooh.
Why should normal people prep, and what are some normal things people can do to prep? So we're talking about like survivalist type stuff, doomsday prepping. Man, we're going to talk about some extreme stuff too, man.
Keith, do you know what? I'm sorry. I didn't mean to interrupt. No, you go ahead.
No, you go ahead.
No, I jumped in. Well, Keith, I was just going to say, here at the Flumadiddle compound, I just want to let the people know I've got about 52,000 MREs.
Yeah.
9 trillion gallons of water. And
2 bullets.
Yeah, I don't really have any weapons much. So I do have a BB gun over here by the door.
Yeah, we got a BB gun.
Because I'm sorry to say, y'all, but I'm on the rampage against squirrels. They're trying to tear into my attic. They're trying to get under my eaves. So I'm tired of the squirrels. So I'm sorry if that upsets you, but I'm on a rampage, Keith.
Well, I mean, push comes to shove, man. We have squirrels too, right?
Exactly. We
just not in the summer, right?
That's it. And if we kill it and prep it just right,
why not in the summer?
Why not squirrels in the summer?
Yeah, do you know?
They got some kind of disease or something?
Yeah.
Really? Like
wolves,
some kind of worms?
Wolves. I think that's the name of the worm. Wolves.
Really?
Yeah.
Okay.
It's like on their neck or something.
Oh, gross.
Yeah, but you don't want to eat that. That's a parasite. Be bad for you.
I don't want to eat squirrel at all if I don't have to. But if I had to eat squirrel,
I kind of do. I want to try it, but I haven't yet.
My grandfather used to go squirrel hunting back in the day.
Yeah.
Take you 22 out and.
All right, before we take too hard of a left turn, man, tell them about the widows, man.
So, GoFundMe, search for Flumadiddle, Widows Link. That's who we're supporting. That's who you're supporting with every penny that you give this year towards your Flumadiddle premium content.
That's right.
And we're giving towards that anyway. So
absolutely,
join in with us and help us out. Help support
already
the widows.
Sent one widow on a cruise. Going to send another one to the what do you call it? The
kind of a retreat. A weekend retreat.
Weekend retreat. These are widows that couldn't afford to get plugged into Widows Link if it wasn't for the Flumadiddlers out there who are supporting.
So that's awesome.
So very important. Buy yourself a membership. I mean, at the end of this podcast, this episode, we're going to add some extra content that will only be for premium members, and it's going to be 5 things you can do today to prep for the Doomsday.
Keith,
for normal people, not paranoid people.
Exactly. Keith, let me just say this.
Right,
we can do more than sit here and look pretty and make a world-class podcast. Yeah, we can make a difference in widows' lives.
That's right.
All right, Keith, so I pitch the ball up to you, man.
All right, so let's first talk about, we said before we did this, we was going to just have a conversation about it. So, John, let me just have a conversation with you about it. What would you do, man, if the crap hit the fan? Let's just say, there's 2 types. We're going to talk about that a little bit. Local and global type disasters. Let's say it's a global one. I'm not going to say what kind. Just a global disaster. Grid is down. What do you do right now, John? Like, let's say we're right here recording right now, and it happens.
And everything happened. Well, Keith, I'd say probably we got a little bit of a late start on it then.
Because you're not prepped at all.
We're not prepped at all. And I think some people, I know this, and please, Keith and I certainly wouldn't classify ourselves, I would say, as preppers.
No, absolutely not.
Per se. And certainly not, because when most people, Keith, I want to go ahead and throw this out there, they think of like the National Geographic show or Discovery Channel where these people have like compounds and tanks and weapons and food to last for 2 and 3 years, like the zombie apocalypse.
Yeah, what's the name of that show? Was it
Extreme Preppers or something like that?
Yeah.
I've maybe watched 1 or 2 of those ever. So you think of some whack job,
right,
who's out there like hoarding all this stuff in case the end of the world comes, the apocalypse. And we're going to hit both, because there are some reasonable things that, even being where we are, I think it's done, but there is a Army facility within about a 50-mile radius of here that was incinerating chemical weapons over the last 10 or 12 years. I think they finished that up within the last 2 or 3
They
4
actually
years.
sent us a emergency preparedness kit.
Yes.
You remember that?
Yes, I do. And basically what you're supposed to do with that is take the Visqueen plastic, put yourself in it, duct tape yourself in it with your head connected firmly to your cheek. And
I know, because that's really what it was. It was like a big roll of plastic and duct tape. What it was for is to put on like your windows and doors so that maybe the nuclear
is to
or
make
the radiation
you think that you were actually had some semblance of control, like you were
Yeah.
doing something while you died instead of sitting there.
I think it wasn't too long before I used that duct tape for other purposes. How about you? Or that plastic?
I think we still had a box
we
here
probably
like a couple years ago.
or something with that plastic.
It had plastic and it had,
All right, so let's talk about some extreme examples, man.
Right.
For the super wealthy, there's this place called the Survival Condo Project.
Oh, wow.
And this guy actually...
So this is for rich nuts.
Yeah, this is for rich nuts. This guy actually bought a Atlas missile silo. It was a, what do you call it, disband missile silo.
Right.
That actually held a nuclear warhead from 61 to 65. And it's just this underground thing, like basically an underground tower.
Right.
And there's about 15 stories, I think, or maybe
I've seen
a few
people
more.
building those before.
Yeah. And so, like, several of the floors are like commune floors, you know, like an exercise room, a pool room, you know, like an actual pool, like an indoor pool, not playing pool, but you know what I mean?
Swimming pool.
A swimming pool, yeah.
Yeah.
And so, like, several of the rooms are like that, maybe a cafe, but there's 12 what you would call apartments or you might call them penthouses. They're entire floors. They're 3,600 square feet.
Oh, that's a big old apartment, isn't it?
Yeah, and
that's the size of a home.
Guys, go online and look this up, Survival Condo Project, because you really need to see the pictures to get a gist of what I'm talking about. They decorated this thing nice.
Can you go ahead and like live there now if you buy your condo?
Yeah, I think so. They can go. I think they. If you buy it, you can go visit there anytime you want. You know, it's just kind of like a vacation home. Which we'll talk a little bit about that in a few minutes and why that might be a good idea. But these things are like $4.5 million.
Oh, wow.
For a full floor, and like 1.5 if you want a half a floor. But check out the pictures though, because it's not like what you're thinking of, like a compound. This is decorated really nice for the super wealthy. You know, it's like it looks like a rich house or something.
So the rest of us poor peons are just going to incinerate and die.
Yeah.
Or get murdered for our resources.
So for the less rich, there are... Well, first, let me just give you a few features of this rich one, man, because I think people find this interesting. So 2.5 to 9 foot thick walls.
Okay.
I feel like I need that like on my kid's bedroom walls.
Right.
You know.
There you go.
Wind turbine, diesel generators, indoor shooting range, hydroponic food. What is that? Hydroponic food.
Where you cook, you grow your food in water.
Yeah,
that's
so
filled
like,
with nutrients,
like fish and stuff. Is that what it is?
No,
right,
hydroponics is just they grow a lot of lettuce hydroponically.
So the next one is probably the fish and stuff. It's called aquaculture. That's probably like your tilapia ponds and stuff like
Something like that.
Farm raised stuff like that. Military grade security, an indoor pool, an exercise facility, a rock climbing wall, a dog park, an arcade, a classroom, a library, a movie theater, a digital weather station, a high-speed elevator, a military-style SWAT team that can pick you up in a 400-mile radius. So if you can get on your private plane and land anywhere within 400 miles and give them a call, and they're coming to
get you.
Yeah, and it has a helipad. So all of that is what you get for your $4.5 million.
So... Okay, I got it. This sounds like a pretty good... we're talking about an angle. That cat's got his angle, man. Because he's probably never going to have to pay up on that bet. And if he screws it up, well, then what are you going to do?
I know. When I was researching this, I didn't think for 1 second I'm going to buy one of these things. I thought, I'm going to build one of these things and sell them.
Know, right? Exactly. That sounds like a great idea, man.
Because that just sounds like there's some money in that. Because he sold all 12 of them.
Really?
Yeah.
That's funny.
All right, so for the less rich extreme survivalists, you probably want to go watch that show you're talking about for that Extreme Preppers.
Okay.
A lot of that on there, but
they have acreage usually, right? And
yeah, usually acreage, underground bunkers stocked with food and ammunition,
water, and
more extreme side of that is forming their own militias. You see a lot of that, so it's kind of like getting ready for teamwork, but forming your own militia so that you can do whatever, I guess, with your militia.
So you can go like all Walking Dead and go kill the other militia and steal all their stuff.
Yeah, be the saviors.
Yeah, there you go.
Be the saviors. All right, so I got something to say about that, John. One thing, like when we had that conversation a minute ago, one thing when you ask people, a lot of times they're like, "Oh, I ain't gonna prepare. I got a bunch of ammunition and a gun, so I'm good. I'll get whatever I need with that." So my question to them is like, so do you become a different person just because something has happened? I mean, because in my book,
to them, you would.
if thieving and murdering is bad now, if God don't like that now, then He ain't gonna like it just because things go bad.
Exactly.
So I'm not gonna become like this different person and then go steal everything I need all of a sudden. Because they're like, well, there is no rule of law. Well, it's still against God's law.
There you go.
No matter what situation you're in.
If you are what you are, then you need to be what you are.
So I mean, yeah. And maybe that says something about you, if you're saying, well, I'll just have a bunch of bullets, and just steal what I
says,
need.
I don't want to hang out with that dude for sure, in case the cat hits the fan, man.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, you definitely need to have some sort of protection, and we'll talk a little bit about that.
Now, we're presuming something, Keith. Am I correct? Right. We're presuming that people know. I mean, we've hinted at it. We are presuming that people know what prepping is.
Right.
So just simply, we're talking about preparing, like at the beginning, preparing for a natural disaster.
All right. So we can go ahead and talk about that. There's a couple
or
different
not necessarily
kinds.
A natural disaster, but some sort of earth-shaking, cataclysmic event, be it man-made, be it natural, or whatever.
Yeah. So let's talk about those
our
different
normal
things. You got global and local, basically, right?
Okay.
All right. So what kind of global disasters might happen, John?
We've talked about major war, nuclear war.
Yeah, I mean, like, with the amount of nuclear warheads we have in this world, and I'm not saying I'm a pacifist or to get rid of them all or something like that. I think once you have...
And I probably am, but they're here, and here we are. What are we going to do
That's
with
my
it?
point. It's like, once they're here, it's almost impossible to go back.
You can't turn the clock back.
Okay, what are you going to do, trust your enemy to get rid of theirs? You can't do that. So they're going to be here, no matter what.
So natural, you're looking at maybe nuclear war. You could be looking. Think about Indonesia, man.
That would be non-naturally, I guess.
Oh, that'd be non-naturally. Yeah. But think of like what happened in Indonesia a few years ago with the tsunami.
Yeah,
like 200,000 people.
So that would be more of a local event, right?
Yeah, it would be local, but it wouldn't be like it just happened to our town or this little area. It was a whole country.
Yeah, exactly.
Or the electrical
That's the
grid
thing.
going
like
down.
You can say local. But for those locals, it might as well be global.
It might as well.
I'm thinking of Katrina or Hurricane Sandy or any of those situations. I mean, it wasn't no different to them. They never local or global.
No, it didn't. It was happening there.
Yeah.
So what happens when these kind of events happen, right, is that your normal chains of supply disappear. So now all of a sudden, right, there's no grocery store to go to.
Exactly. So let's talk a little bit about what some other things could happen.
Okay,
you got war, terrorism, economic is a big one.
Right.
Right, because that would be global. Generally global. You can have a local
like a major depression
economic, but we'll talk about that one a little bit more in a second. But a pandemic or a technological disaster.
Like electrical grids or internet outages.
Right.
Think about so much stuff that's computer, internet related.
And then local would be more probably weather event, an epidemic, or a social unrest, like maybe riots or something like that. You don't want to be caught in that either.
No, but even here where we're at in 1993, right, they jokingly call it the blizzard of 93, which was 12 to 16 inches of snow.
Right.
But to somewhere like Buffalo, New York, they'd probably laugh at that. Yeah. But to a city that's not prepared for that, and all of a sudden everything iced over, the power lines are breaking.
Yeah.
Thank goodness in this house they had gas heat.
Yeah.
So they were able to at least turn the gas on.
We got real lucky too because we were on a grid that included intersections and stuff where I lived. They were kind of had priority on getting those up.
Oh, I got you.
And so we had power by 8 o'clock the next morning.
See, I know people. My grandparents were without power for 10, 11 days.
I know. It was crazy. And let me tell you this, guys. We're in Alabama, right? So you in Ireland may not know what we're talking about. Maybe you do. I don't know what the weather's like in Ireland. But, other parts of the country here in the United States don't know what I'm talking about. But if you don't think that the grocery stores are going to be full of people in a disaster, just come to Alabama when they mention the word snow.
Exactly.
You know what I mean? Because just with the word snow, I mean, the grocery store aisles full of bread and milk are just wiped out.
Keith, have you seen the Alabama Still Life?
Why do they do bread and milk?
I don't know.
Milk sandwiches or something?
I mean, exactly. The Alabama Still Life shows a jug of milk, a loaf of bread, and about 2 packs of AA batteries.
Yeah, that sounds about
That's
right.
the Alabama still life picture.
But see, that's another problem I have with this whole mentality of, well, I got bullets, I'll just go get what I need. Well, so does 100,000 other people think the same thing.
Right.
You know, so first of all, it's going to be gone. Second of all, you're going to put yourself in danger, you know.
Second of all, you're going to be a dirty, rotten son of a gun.
Right. Yeah, exactly. So, anyway, I think probably, what's the most likely you think of those things to actually happen?
Well, we hope, at least in the area where we are, you probably figure your natural disaster, probably a weather-related event.
So for local,
tornado,
a localized
major snowstorm
disaster.
I would think for us that
natural.
Now that the depot incinerator is not a concern,
right?
I mean, it was supposed to be safe, but if that depot incinerator would have leaked chemical weapons or would have gone afoul when it was incinerating chemicals, it could have been a very serious event.
Yeah, I don't know if this is true or not, but I always heard that the way they tested radiation was they'd like send a rabbit in and see if it died. Did you know that? Or
maybe that was pre-Geiger counter.
Might have been pre-Geiger counter. I don't know. That's poor rabbits.
Well, it's kind of like a sparrow, though. You know, they did do that like in mines.
Yeah.
Send a sparrow down or something.
Right.
To test if there's like carbon monoxide in there because you couldn't smell it. Back in the day, you couldn't test for it. Now you can.
Right, now you can. Yeah.
So I'd say probably here you're probably looking at a major event like tornado or maybe a freak snowstorm that iced everything over.
And don't think that stuff don't happen. We had, 114 tornadoes came through in 2011, I think?
Yes, the big one that hit.
April's Fury.
2011, it came through 2011 and 12. We had bad. Yeah. 2011 was the big one, but that next year, like in February, we had a lot of. Well, that was the snow.
It's like, okay, I mean, people who don't live in tornado areas may not know what we're talking about. And generally speaking, you may have 2 or 3 tornadoes in a state during a storm, right?
Right.
And this one storm, we had like 114 tornadoes come through our state.
This is Tornado Alley, man.
And
you don't know what a tornado is somewhere you're listening? Think of a hurricane. Think of a localized hurricane, kind of.
Yeah.
They can be small, anywhere from,
and there's a
few feet across to a half a mile or wider across.
There was a whole book written just on stories about April's Fury. People telling their stories. Like I had this one guy I knew who his wife was like not in good shape and he wasn't either, and she had a lift chair and was trying to get up, and the tornado pushed her lift chair over the top of her and her head landed inside a magazine basket. So her head was protected and her body was protected because of that chair and the magazine basket. And then she was hollering at him to see if he could get the cat. So he closed the door when he couldn't find the cat, and then he was in a hallway, and they fell over like in an A on top of him, and he was protected by those 2 walls. The rest of their house was completely gone when it was over.
Isn't that crazy, man?
All their stuff was gone.
Crazy.
And so they were protected, though, but like just all kind of stories like that. But, man, that swept through and affected a lot of people that year.
So whatever the event is.
So global, though, what's the most likely global? That's probably the most likely local. I think probably myself, I would think economic or pandemic.
I would think so at this juncture because, we know people that were affected doing hospice. We know people that were affected by the Great Depression.
Yeah.
And wide swaths of the rural folks that we know, there was no store to go to.
Right.
Now, thankfully, they were prepared in some degree. They had a certain level of self-sufficiency that most people don't.
Yeah.
And there's all kinds of amazing stories of neighbors who grew extra food, whose gardens did great when theirs didn't, and groceries appearing on front porches. And there you go, Keith. Instead of people shooting each other and taking stuff, people taking their extra and dropping it off at their neighbor's house.
And I'm glad you mentioned the Depression. There's 2 things I'd like to say about that. One is I agree with you. I think we're less prepared for something like that now. We know a whole lot less stuff. We're way more Americanized.
Yeah. Absolutely.
And 2 is that's a good example of why it can happen now. Because they called the booming 20s for a reason.
Right.
They were in a huge economic rise before it happened.
Exactly.
And then it did happen. So, like, you can't say, oh, we're good now. We've been in economic rise for this long and it's not going to happen. No, I mean, it can happen any moment.
It can happen, man. So that, and hopefully...
I'm not trying to fearmonger,
Oh, no, because that's what we're not trying to
about
do.
Being prepared.
Because I hope what we're going to get into is less of the extreme stuff, and we're going to talk about what you would do in some of these events, right? What would you do?
Right.
Well, how would you prepare for this kind of situation, Keith?
Absolutely.
So where are we headed from here, Keith?
Okay, so from here, let's talk about why it could go out so easily, why you would need to prepare. So we did talk about some things that could happen.
Right.
But like just saying an economic crisis, they don't really give an example of why it could happen. You were talking about the grid, right? You mentioned the grid going
kind of
down.
Electrical grid. There's one time I heard where if some certain thing happened at this one area, a large majority of the eastern seaboard could be without power.
Exactly, and that was my point, is actually as time goes on, John, we are actually more connected than ever. And things, they try to improve things with technology, but it also makes things more complicated.
Right.
So actually, if the power went down, the power grid went down, first of all, like you said, it would be entire swaths of the country at one time because we're so connected now. But also, it would be that much harder to get it going back up again because it's so much more complicated now.
Right.
So it could take a long time.
So it's not just run out, hey, you guys go push that big switch and flip it back.
Absolutely. So, like, the thing we don't think about is that there's large amounts of staff that it takes to run these things. So if you have a pandemic or an economic collapse or something like that, the people who run these things are going to be more worried about taking care of their own family than they are going to work. And so if there's nobody to run them, what happens to them? They go out. They don't work. They don't work without human staff. So, I just don't think people realize how, I guess, fragile our grid is.
Right.
It wouldn't take much for it to go down.
Right.
Once the power goes down, the water goes down because, a lot of people think, well, we got those water towers. They're gravity fed. That'll last for months.
That's what they used to do, huh? Each town you'd go in, the big town had 2 or 3 big water towers sitting around.
Right, and we still have them, but the thing is now with the new regulations of like water filtration and stuff like that, the water actually has to be pumped through what it's connected to now to be filtered and treated and everything before it's pumped to your house. So it's not going directly to your house from that anymore. So you can't rely on gravity. You have to rely on power, which you won't have anymore. So no power, no water. And then also on top of that, let's just say delivery men, they're going to be doing the same thing. No staff to carry the food to the grocery stores. Power and water is going to go out pretty quick.
No Walmart guys to pack your groceries and bring them out to your car now.
And what they say is that, like, really, because we're so efficient at moving product now, grocery stores are not near as stocked as they used to be.
Right.
And
that makes sense.
So food would have run out of the grocery stores within a couple of weeks, probably much quicker with all the people who's going to be looting,
Right. Think about some of the people. I like to bring it back to the people.
Right.
Think about some of our elderly folks that we've dealt with over the years, Keith. They've got a basement or they got a cellar or they got something, a pantry that looks like they're prepping, but they're not. You know what they did? They just canned all their vegetables from their garden.
Right,
because they couldn't grow vegetables in the wintertime.
Yeah.
And they couldn't go to the grocery store.
And
so they got a cellar full of vegetables.
And they're just not wasteful. It's like I have all these vegetables and I don't want to waste them, so I know how to can, so I'm going to can them.
Right.
Like my dad cans, and I don't think he thinks one bit about, I need to prep. It's just like...
That's just what you do. That's how you have food.
You do. You just don't waste it. You save it for later, and that's how you save it for later.
We're not going to let Campbell's can our soup. We're going to make our own tomato soup starter or vegetable soup starter.
Absolutely.
So why do we need to can?
Well, because that's part of prepping. So why do we need to prep?
All right, so there you go, Keith.
So that's basically why you need to prep, is because things are fragile. They could go down. Things can happen. So let's talk a little bit about how. Okay, this is what the people really want. Okay,
it is, and we're being more down to earth with it. I'm saying I really come back to something like the weather event. And my grandparents were without power for 10 days. I don't know about water. You can't do without water for 10 days, and if you can't get on the road, that has happened here.
Yeah,
and if you didn't have at least 10 days worth of water or some kind of beverage set aside, you're in a bind.
Yeah, and I think, John, that's one problem I think that a lot of people have with the approach they take on this, is that you think more of your stock than you do yourself. And I think the number one thing you need to do is stop taking an Americanized approach to it and think about preparing yourself for it more than stocking stuff for it. Now, we will talk a little bit about stocking stuff for it, but the thing is, it's like... Well, here's the thing, man. Here's the American approach. Let's buy it on Amazon, right? So there's a prep kit on Amazon. Let's just buy that prep kit. We'll put it in the basement. We're done. I'm prepared, right? No.
I'm not trusting Jeff Bezos with my water supply.
Well, exactly. But, think about this. All right, so say your prep kit has 4 days of rice in it. Do you know how to prepare rice? Just, I mean, you may, John, because you're pretty good with food stuff. Rice. But like, do you know how to cook just basic rice? Straight out of a bag. I wouldn't be very good at that. Or oatmeal. Do you how to do like not the quick oats, but like the old kind of oats? Do you know how to do these things?
Yeah, man.
You need to take these things out and practice.
But the problem is, can you stick it in your microwave?
Absolutely
no, because you're not going to have.
It's going to be different than how you do it now.
And you got to have water to make any of that. And if you're smart, Keith, when you build a house, dude, whatever you do, at least get a gas stove.
Yeah.
We've got a gas stove, and we've got secondary gas. We got a gas furnace and a secondary gas heat. So they didn't freeze to death when it happened.
But still, if we're thinking long term, like I said, all this depends on what kind of disaster it is.
If
it's
very
a short-term
so.
Disaster, then obviously
that makes a difference.
Your gas could last a certain amount of time.
Right.
But at some point, you need to know how to build a fire. This is why I'm saying that, like, knowledge over supplies. Okay? Like, start figuring out first how to do some of these skills that's been lost. I think that's real important.
I got 2 words for you. Wes Stroud. Isn't that the Survivor man? We got to learn his thing.
I think so.
And then your mama and papa back in the day.
Yeah, they know a lot of stuff.
They could can some food. They could grow the garden.
So they
could skin a buck. They could run a trot line. And a country boy can't survive.
Oh, absolutely. Keith. And I think part of preparing yourself, too, that people don't think about. All right, so we said, knowledge is one. Another one is stay in shape. Because here's the thing, man. I know people who, even if they knew how to skin and gut a deer, would throw their back out when they started to hoist it up. And if you throw your back out in a survival situation, you're done for. Nobody's going to help you. I mean,
they're going to eat you for dinner if it gets too cold.
Exactly. So you're not going to be able to take care of yourself. So it is important to exercise and stay in shape. Stay limber. Exercise.
Why are you staring at me when you say that, Keith?
I'm doing a podcast with you, John.
All right.
You've been staying in shape, man. DDP yoga.
I've been trying to exercise, Keith. I'm overweight and out of shape. I prefer to use the word voluptuous.
Yeah.
But I have definitely been making an effort these last few months to exercise.
Right.
And some yoga-ish type stuff, some stretching, some push-ups, sit-ups, a little bit of weightlifting.
And I don't mean, become like a bodybuilder or something like that.
Right.
I'm just saying keep yourself flexible. Like, I know that, like, Jennifer, my wife, here lately, we've been doing some work. It's been a lot harder on her because, like, she's just out of shape. And she knows it. She wouldn't get mad at me for saying it.
Keith, I'm doing naked jumping jacks right now. I'm getting in shape right this moment.
He is not doing naked jump jacks. That is incorrect. All right, so prepare yourself first, and then think about supplies. So what's some supplies you think you need? You mentioned a couple of them.
Well, Keith, first and foremost is water.
Water, okay.
You've got to have clean water.
In a survival situation, you think of the rules of 3, right?
Okay, so you got to have water, more water, and the third source of water.
You can go 3 minutes without air.
Okay, gotcha.
3 days without water, 3 weeks without food.
Right.
And I'll be honest with you, Americans is probably not that good.
No,
It's like we're not acclimated to going 3 weeks without food.
I mean, we go an extra few hours without food.
Oh my God,
and I'm blessed. Like, I usually don't eat a big lunch. Well, I had a big lunch and a big supper tonight, so I'm like sitting over here like I'm burping off to the side. They're like,
So air generally. That's why they send you like the tape and the plastic. Make sure you have, if it's a certain situation that you're going to have breathable air.
Well, you could at least breathe up what's air left in the house before you die of the chemicals that are seeping in next.
Exactly. So, but more importantly though, because air is just not going to be a problem. If it is, then you're probably screwed. But more importantly, water. It's like you said. Now, that does not mean you have to stockpile a whole bunch of water.
It doesn't.
You just need to know where water is.
Well, that's true.
Because there is ways to purify water, right?
Right, there is.
You can filter water in many different ways, and also you can just boil water.
You can.
And so you can get the bacteria when you boil it. Now, I don't necessarily want to drink dirty water, even if it's boiled. So you need to figure out some different types of filtration methods, and you can buy on Amazon different types of filtration straws.
You can make like the little
things,
can't you? Like there's a 5-gallon bucket purifier with sand.
Yeah, you just use
carbon
sand, and you can use charcoal
and stuff like that. So
okay. So that's one thing that I was thinking too, is that when you create your storage, put some kind of something in there that's going to help you remember how to do stuff, like maybe a survival manual,
some Google
print offs. because there's not going to be any Google. You're not going to be able to Google.
Ain't going to be no Google. You better know what to do then.
All right. So next thing is food. You know, like you were talking about, you need at least a few days of food.
Yeah.
Think about
non-perishable items.
Yeah, non-perishable items. Rice is a big deal.
Yeah, dried goods, rice, dried beans.
I was thinking long term, you might need to figure out like a pillar of salt. That's just so that you can store meat. You know, so like say you kill a deer, well, that's good for how long?
Yeah,
you know,
that or a smokehouse. You know, I had some country folks that were my step grandparents. They could still they still smoke their own meats.
Yeah, and see, all that stuff comes with knowledge.
Like
I mean, you hear these arguments all the time. They're like, "Well, I'll just dehydrate it." With what, your dehydrator? I mean, do you know how to dehydrate meat without a dehydrator?
Right.
I mean, that's where knowledge comes in again. You know what I mean? Learning these different skills, because I'm telling you right now on my land, this morning when I woke up, my dog run off a good-sized deer. When I got home from work today, I had to wait for 2 rabbits to get out of the driveway before I could pull up. I have plenty of, and there's squirrels all over the place, all kind of deer. I have plenty of things.
You've got protein, man.
I got protein, but the thing is would I know how to keep that meat for long periods of time? You know, do I know how to prepare it? So that's where knowledge comes in.
Make you some squirrel jerky.
All right, so next thing, while you're making your little box, your prepared box, you know, you got some way to filter water, some non-perishable food. Third is some first aid. Fourth is security.
All right.
You know, we talked about guns, knives, whatever. We're not going off and pillaging. You know, we're not pirates. We're not thieving. But there may be some thieves, some looters who come to take your stuff, you know.
Right.
And you don't want to shoot nobody, but when you point a gun at them, maybe they think twice about stealing your stuff. You know what I mean? Or whatever weapon you use. Shelter is important, you know, especially depending on the season. And then fuel and tools.
Oh, yeah. Absolutely.
Okay. So now you may think there's some kind of priority list there. That depends on different circumstances.
The situation and circumstance.
Whatever situation it is and whatever time of year it is. I mean, shelter's going to be pretty important if it's 20-something degrees outside.
Right.
You know, it's going to be more important than probably security, you know, because you're going to be more likely to die from the cold than you are from somebody coming and looting your stuff.
Exactly.
So it just depends on what the situation is and what order you put these things in. So that's about all I got for this. Now, John, on the extra content, I'm going to give you 5 things you can do today to prepare yourself for a disaster. 5 things you can do right now.
So. All right. So on that note, let's tell the people they can reach us at doyouflumadiddle@gmail.com. That's at doyouflumadiddle on Facebook. And that's 1 M, not 2, because 2 is a dessert. So for everyone that's been listening tonight, we thank you and we appreciate it. And we would encourage you to purchase the Flumadiddle Premium content. On that, we say good night, God bless,
and peace out.